All right, bro. First full week of the off season.
Yep.
Time to break down. We're gonna go over a bunch of things. Looking at AL East, NL East, qualifying offer news. Few things to get into first. Farhan Zaidi has been named MLB's Executive of the Year after leading the Giants to a 107 win season. Um, I mean, aside from the fact they won the most games, I feel like the roster they did it with wasn't the most impressive part. So, I mean, we've talked about this, but it's still like really impressive.
Yeah, I think like most GMs, like when they win this award, it's like they work with what they have. And like
Right.
he made the best out of like what he had, and then like he added at the deadline, like we were the ones that always kept saying, like, man, at the deadline, all these guys are like building up their trade value. They're all gonna get like so many prospects, and then they turn around
Mm-hmm.
and trade for Chris Bryant. So like he believed in the roster, and I mean, man, they won 107 games. They were one away from the championship series. Who knows what would have happened if they beat the Dodgers in Game 5? So, um, it's pretty crazy too that like Farhan was the Dodgers GM for a while too, or whatever it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
So, and then he went to San Francisco, and like they had this big division race this year, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Few other things. Dodgers have signed Yankee great Andrew Heaney to a 1 year, $8.5 million contract. So I don't know how you guys replace that. That's tough.
Man, they got a good one. I'll tell you that. He's a great pitcher. Dude, I mean, last year alone, he had a 7.32 ERA. That's some good stuff.
Right. Well, higher the better. Right. That's how it works. So that's
Right.
it's impressive.
Yeah, he was also left off the Yankees wild card roster after we traded for him. So he was not on our playoff roster. And he just made more money than Robbie Ray did last year, by the way.
Did you
Robbie Ray got
really?
Robbie Ray got $8 million for 1 year, and Heaney just
Wow.
got $8.5 million.
Wait, is Robbie Ray a free agent?
Yeah.
Okay, see, I was not aware of that. Okay, we'll have to get into that a little bit later too. Then. Okay. Well,
So
good for uh, good for Andrew then.
you know what? Good for him for like making that money. He was so bad. I don't know how he's getting that money, but
No, I
you know
mean,
what? His agent found a way. So
great agent, whoever you are. God bless you. Yeah.
right.
Vladdy Jr. and Bryce Harper have been named the Hank Aaron Award winners for each league, given to the best overall offensive player. You think it's a? I guess it's both deserving. I think Otani would have had a case as far, but I think probably Vlad was the best choice in the AL.
Yeah, I think like the OPS kind of gave it to Vlad. Vlad, I think, was the only player in the American League with an OPS like with however many at bats he had, like with an OPS above 1,000 for like the whole year. I think his
Gotcha.
OPS
Yeah.
was 1.002, so he was barely over. But I mean, also Vlad's batting average was a lot better than Otani's too. I believe Otani only hit about 270, and Vlad hit
That's
like
true.
330 or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, I mean Harper had a great year too. So I don't. I think there are like a few guys. Obviously, like Semien could have been another choice here too. But they're both MVP candidates too. So when the best hitter in each league is also an MVP candidate, you know that they've had pretty good seasons.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, the finalists for the four major awards in both leagues have been announced. So let's get into that. For the Cy Young's AL, we just talked about Robbie Ray, Garrett Cole, and Lance Lynn. And then the NL, you have Corbin Burns, Max Scherzer, and Zach Wheeler. So definitely a little more stacked in the NL, but
Yeah, I think we talked about who we would have given our awards to.
right.
Man, like as good as Cole and Lynn were this year, I think you got to give it to Robbie Ray. He just had a great season in the AL.
Yeah.
The NL, man, that's tough. I don't know. It's like, I mean, if you think about it too, like Wainwright isn't even in the top three, and like he easily had a great season. So he could have easily been there.
Right. I think Walker Bueller was in that conversation until
Right.
maybe like the last month or so.
Yeah.
Obviously the Grom, if he wasn't there. Even Kevin
Yeah.
Gosman isn't on that
Yeah,
list.
Gossman had a great year. So did Webb, the other Giants pitcher who did really good
Yeah.
this year.
Really
Logan
good
Webb, I
race this
think.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, the American League was way less stacked in the Cy Young for sure. This is going to probably come down to like a pretty close vote, I think, because each guy in the NL had a great season. Like Wheeler was
Yeah.
lights out the whole year. Burns was like a nasty in the beginning. I mean, he was good the whole year though, and then, like Scherzer was great on two teams. and he helped lead the Dodgers to the playoffs. So it's going to be
Yeah.
an interesting vote for sure.
Yeah. For AL Rookie of the Year, you have Randy Rosarena, Wander Franco, and Luis Garcia. Um, anyone you think should have been on that list?
I mean, man, when we talked about it like a month ago, there were two guys on my list. Franco and Luis Garcia were not on my list. Ryan
Mm,
Mountcastle was, and Adolis Garcia was from the Rangers. I mean, I don't. I think they kind of just wanted to have a pitcher on there for each because Luis Garcia had a good year, but Mountcastle almost drove in 100 runs. Garcia on the Rangers was like one of the best defensive outfielders in the league. Plus, his
yeah.
defense was great. I mean, I can't believe Franco's on there instead of those guys too, because he played like half the amount of games
I
they
was gonna
did.
say I feel like Franco did not
Yeah.
play a lot of games.
Like he was amazing when he did play, obviously, but like I feel like you got to look at quantity there. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I would have put like Mountcastle over Franco, but you're
Yeah.
kind of it's a close one.
Yeah, they all had great years. So,
Yeah.
um,
National League, it's Dylan Carlson, Jonathan India, or Trevor. There's a couple of Rogers. I'm getting mixed up. Trevor Rogers. Yeah, that one.
yeah.
Um, so I mean, you also had like Patrick Wisdom, Ian Anderson. Those two were left off the list. So a pretty decent NL rookie class.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Carlson had a good year, but Ian Anderson was great pitching the whole year. And then like again, obviously you don't look at the playoffs, but Ian
Yeah,
Anderson had
that's
a
what
really
kind
good
of
year.
like skews in your mind. Yeah.
But like Patrick Wisdom had a great year. I think he hit over 20 homers. So he was really good for the Cubs.
Hmm.
I don't know. This is kind of tough, man. I mean, India had a great year, but Rogers did too. Rogers was the only Marlins All-Star. He had a great season.
Yeah.
I don't know who I'd give it to here, to be honest. I think maybe India I lean towards, but I don't know.
Yeah, India or I thought Rogers was really good, especially for a team like Miami. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we've talked AL MVP a lot. It's Semien, Vladdy, and Otani. Um, I mean, Salvador Perez like should be in that conversation, but it's hard.
Man, yeah, like there are so many guys in the AL, oh, in both leagues really, but so many guys in the AL that had great offensive seasons. Like I think that putting Vladdy and Simeon though both in the final vote kind of like I think Otani would have won it anyway, but I think putting them both in that final vote kind of is going to cancel out votes because they're from the same team. So I think Otani is going to win this by a lot. Um, you know what I mean? Like they usually
Yeah,
don't have two guys from the same team.
I guess I was a little. I guess if I was being picky, I would put Salvi over Semien,
Yeah.
but
I mean, talk about like the guys in the AL East though, like Vlad and Simeon. I mean, Judge had a great season.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so did Rafael Devers. I mean, Devers was a beast the whole year. The Red Sox definitely would have done what they did without him. So
true, true,
it's an interesting vote. But I think it's got to go to Otani here. We talked
yeah,
about this like a month ago. The pitching and the offense combined is just too good, man.
yeah. For NL, Harper, Soto, and Tatis. Um, I think Harper is the favorite at this point. At least it just seems to
Really?
be. Right, like look at the media. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I necessarily pick him, but that's kind
Yeah.
of what I've heard at least. So
Yeah, I mean, I think I might lean towards Harper, but like Tatis was amazing when he was on the field. Obviously, he was hurt a little bit.
yeah,
And like Soto performed so well on a team that was so bad. I know none of these teams made the playoffs, but
right,
the Nationals were kind of way below because they traded everybody at the deadline. So like they weren't trying to
yeah,
win. The Padres kind of fell apart. Um, I mean, I think Freddie Freeman should be in the conversation too, though. He had an outstanding year again. I think he hit above 300, like he always does. Drove in about 100 runs. And like a bunch of guys in the Giants had great years. Like Brandon Crawford, I feel like should kind of be in the conversation too. He had one of his best
mm,
seasons in a while.
that's
Buster
true.
Posey had a great year too, but I don't think Posey had the amount of games as everybody else because he was catching. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I think I would lean Harper here too.
yeah. Also, I mean, you had mentioned the part about the playoffs for a second. All six of these guys did not make the
Right,
playoffs on their
right, right.
team, so kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
so
I personally don't look at that if I were a voter, but like it just yeah, it's kind of odd.
I think the conversation has changed a lot in recent years because of like Mike Trout never making the playoffs, and he always has
Yeah,
every
true.
year. Like he didn't this year, obviously, because he was hurt. But I think more voters are like leaning back from that, like instead of being like, well, they got to make the playoffs, like because if you think about it, like if that was the case, the final three would probably be Judge, Devers, and like whoever else from the American League, and then it would be Freeman, Crawford, and somebody else from the National League.
Yeah,
Um,
it would make sense.
so
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. Like I don't look at it that way either, and I'm glad
Hmm.
like the tides are kind of changing with that because it makes more sense.
Yeah, right. All right, for AL Manager of the Year, you have Cash, Cervase, and Baker. And then NL, you got Craig Counsell, Gabe Kapler, and Mike Schilt. So Mike Schilt, who's not doesn't have a job anymore, but that's I guess
Yeah.
besides the point.
Yeah, that happened last year too with Rick Renteria from the White Sox, I think,
Oh, right. Yeah.
or whoever was the coach last year. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. This has nothing to do with my dislike of the Astros. Dusty Baker should not be in the final three. Alex Cora won with a team that was not supposed to win. The Blue Jays did the same thing. The Astros were supposed to win their division.
That's true.
Honestly, I
Like,
don't
yeah, it's not like they
understand why
overcame
he's there.
anything.
Like they were supposed to win the division. I don't understand why he's there at all.
Okay, just quick side tangent to that. You know what really bothered me in the playoffs when, like, whenever Joe Buck was talking with the Astros, it'd be like, "Oh yeah, this team that overcame so much. They just had such a tumultuous few years." And like, what are you talking about? Like, you're being like they're like some like they've come back or something. I don't know.
Like I agree. Like you can't like discount that they're good because like they've now won without cheating like a lot. But
Right.
like they were supposed to win anyway. They would have won without cheating if they never cheated in the first place. So then they wouldn't have had to overcome anything. So like all they've had to overcome is because they cheated. Like
Yeah, because it's
and
self-inflicted wounds. Like I
yeah.
don't feel
And like I
bad for them.
like
Don't push that on me.
yeah. It's like that happened and that's it. Like it's always gonna be there. And like, yeah, did Baker like help them through it? Maybe like yeah, but they're grown men. They know what they're doing.
Yeah,
They
and
know
they're
what
grown
they're
men and they
doing.
all cheated. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I just like okay,
And
they overcame so much. Sure.
like
Like I
the Red Sox were terrible last year. They were in last place last year in the shortened season. Alex
yeah.
Cora comes back and brings them to the playoffs. They were a series away from the World Series. How is I know we don't look at playoffs, but like he brought them to the playoffs. And Charlie Montoyo, how is Scott Service there, but Montoyo's not? Like they had the same amount of wins, and they were not really projected to make the playoffs. Maybe the Blue Jays were a little bit more, but like still, I think
Yeah.
if I'm looking at who I would vote for, though, I would go Scott Service here. Like, I think compared to the other two, like Cash and Baker, like, yeah, maybe like the Rays weren't projected to make the playoffs, but they're the Rays. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. They're gonna be in the
Right. Yeah, I'm
playoffs.
not
So,
surprised. Yeah.
the Mariners were really the only team that either of these guys managed that wasn't really supposed to be where they were. So I think it's got to go to him. Do you feel the same? What do you think?
Um yeah, I would agree with that just because of the expectations they had going in. And then the NL, I feel like Kapler is kind of an easy choice. I mean, we've done these picks already, but just like I feel like for the same reasons that we talked about with Zadie for executive of the year. So
Yeah, I think like Council, the Brewers were kind of supposed to win though, and like the Cardinals were too, but they kind of went through some tough, rough patches there in like May and June, and Schilt kind of helped get them through that. I guess I think that
yeah,
Brian Snitker could have been a choice here too, because of
that's
all
true.
the
Yeah.
outfield changes, like all the roster changes that happened, and like he
Hmm.
kept the clubhouse together. I think that he could have been a choice, but I really don't see a wrong choice here. I think Gabe Kapler is going to win it though. I mean, outstanding job. Like it's especially too good for him because he kind of like got screwed over in Philly. Like they didn't really give him enough time to get
Yeah.
used to everything. But it's Philadelphia. I mean, it's just like New York. You if you don't do it, you're out.
Oh yeah. No, there's no
So,
mercy there.
but you know what? I do think he's going to be a manager in San Francisco for a long time. I think that they like that vibe kind of fits out there too, don't you think? Like
Yeah,
he
I can
fits
see it
out
for
there.
him.
He's more
Yeah.
of like a calming dude, I think. And in Philly, that was just like a little off. So I think he'll do better in San Francisco.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about qualifying offer news. So this year it's a 1 year, 18.4 million deal. Some of the players that were offered it are Castellanos, Correa, Freeman, Corey Seager, Semien, Trevor Story, Chris Taylor, Justin Verlander. And then as far as guys that are like pretty set to decline, those Michael Conforto, Nick Castellanos, Corey Seager, and Marcus Semien are reported to be looking for something longer.
I think that Conforto is the only one out of those four that I thought might lean towards taking it, just because he kind of had a down season.
Right.
I also think that like his track record speaks for itself. So like I think teams are still gonna give him big money. Because like since he came up in when 2014 or 15, he's been every year. So
he's I don't know what to think of him, man.
Yeah,
like he's no like the track record's there, but I just last year was just brutal for him until maybe the end. He kind of turned it on, but so he's looking for something more. Scott Boras was talking yesterday, and he said he called him like the king of queens. He's like, oh yeah, the market's great for him. Like, I don't like Scott, but whole other thing. So yeah, well, we'll see what kind of deal he gets. As far as these guys, like I've run through, who do you think is most likely to accept or most likely to decline?
Okay, so a guy I think is probably going to accept is Eduardo Rodriguez from the Red Sox. He was offered this. I think he's been with the Red Sox his whole career. And last year was his worst year ever. He had a 4.74 ERA, 1.389 WHIP. Those were both career high, like bad career highs. But he had a career best 10.6 strikeouts per nine and a 3.32 FIP, which are
That's pretty good.
The best of his career, both of them. So it's kind of insane that his ERA was that inflated from that. But
yeah, that's a huge difference.
I think he'll accept it because he probably wants to get his market value back up. And like, if teams look at the FIP and the strikeouts, they might be like, well, last year was like a blip. But I think if he reestablishes himself with Boston next year and like the numbers are actually back to where they look good, he's probably going to get even more money the next year. So I think he might take it. Plus, Boston is like competing right now. He pitched well in the playoffs when he did pitch. So I think that he will stay. A guy I think won't stay, and this might be a little controversial, but I think Justin Verlander is going to leave. Because I know he's coming off the injury and like he could easily just go back, reestablish himself, and maybe get like a 1 or 2 year deal, but that would be at age 40. And
yeah.
Again, he said he wants to play until he's 45. That was like his thing that happened this week. You never know.
Very like Tom Brady thing to say.
Yeah. But listen, I mean, he had a showcase this week. There were like 20 teams there. His fastball was reaching 96. So I think he's going to be back to the way Justin Verlander is. And I think he wants to go out there and see if he can make a little bit more than that 18.4 million per year, maybe get a 2 or 3 year deal out there.
Yeah.
That's what I think though.
That's reasonable. Okay. For accept, I'm going to go Noah Syndergaard. This one's a pretty easy one for me. He's pitched 2 innings in the last 2 years. I don't really know what leverage he would have if he like 18 million. Like I don't even know if he's worth that next year, to be honest, even as good as he is. So like I just feel like it makes a lot of sense for him to take it. Have a great year next year, hopefully. But I just think because of the lack of track record the last 2 years, he's taken that. For decline, I'm not even gonna mention like the Semians or the Correas. Like obviously they're not accepting. So I'll say like Robbie Ray. Like I don't think like we've talked about him before. I can't see him going on a 1 year deal at this point. Like his value is never gonna be higher.
Yeah, no, I think like he just had his best year ever. He's not going to take a 1 year deal. It's not like he has to reestablish himself. He just did.
Right.
Like he pretty much just did this without the qualifying offer last year when he signed a 1 year deal with Toronto. Only he made $8 million, but like I think he's going to make a lot more than that. I think he's only about 30 or 31 years old, so he's still relatively young. Yeah, I think he'll definitely go on the market. As far as Syndergaard, though, I think you're right. I think he'll stay with the Mets. And dude, like I get what you mean. He may not be worth 18.4, but if he fucking is the way he used to be, that's that's a good deal. And like, let's say DeGrom stays healthy, right? And then you
Yeah.
got DeGrom, Syndergaard. Obviously we don't know what's going to happen with Stroman or anybody else in your rotation yet, but I mean those two guys, if they're right, that's a 1-2 punch that I don't think anybody wants to face in October.
Yeah.
So
I mean, both these guys we're talking about, Verlander and Syndergaard. It feels like forever since we've seen them.
I know, right? I
Yeah.
think didn't Syndergaard pitched like one inning this
Oh,
year, right?
that's true. He did pitch,
And
yeah, once or
I
twice at the end of
remember
this year.
seeing him and it was like so weird. I was like, man, that's like I haven't seen him in forever. Like
Yeah.
whenever I think of him, it feels like it's been since like 2015, honestly, because I
If
remember
you,
him in like in the playoffs and the World Series that year. Like that's just what I always picture. So
right. I mean, dude, if he's like 80% of what he was, like you're in that case, you're right. It's a bargain. Yeah. Where would you go? Like a guy like Chris Taylor, you think he accepts?
that's a tough one, man, because like I think he likes being in LA,
Yeah.
but I also think that he would prefer like a multi-year deal. I don't
Oh
know how
yeah.
old he is, but I think it maybe because of his age, he would prefer like a kind of a stability with like years wise. But I mean, who knows? A guy like that making 18.4 million, like I don't think he's going to make that on the open market for a multi-year deal. Like I don't think it'll be like a 3-year deal for like 60 million or something. Like
Yeah, I guess the case for that is because of like the postseason he had, the 3 homer game. Maybe some team
right.
overpays him. You never know, and because he's
I mean, because
versatile.
there are definitely, yeah, exactly. Like he's versatile, so there are definitely a ton of teams. Like pretty much every team is going to want him. So like he knows that. I think his agent knows that, so they might just go test it. I don't know. That's an interesting one though.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna break down about 2 divisions today, for an off-season preview. So I'll give you, bro, AL East. What are you looking at starting with like the Rays?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I'll take this as like the order the standings were last year. So
Okay.
start with the Rays. So obviously the Rays are contending. They're always trying to win. Even though they do it a little weirdly, they are always trying to win. So
Yeah.
obviously, I think an obvious need for them is starting pitching because yes, Glasnow is going to come back, but you know what? They might trade Glasnow sometime soon because they can't pay him eventually. So you don't know when that's going to happen. I know he's coming off the injury, but we'll see.
Hmm.
But I mean, I think some guys that would fit great there. John Gray would fit perfect in Tampa, I think, because he's great on the road and he actually pitches pretty well in Colorado too. But I don't know. He might be a little bit above their price range. What the Rays are more likely to do, I think, is sign a guy like Brett Anderson or Martin Perez on like 1-year
Yeah,
deals
that's on brand.
worth maybe 10 million or something. But they're guys who could get you some innings. They could be openers. That's what the Rays love to do. So that could happen too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Rays sign guys like that every year. Like this year, it was like Michael Wacha, Rich Hill. So I think that those are two guys that would definitely fit well in Tampa. And they need a DH because Nelson Cruz is a free agent. And guess who the perfect fit would be? Nelson Cruz, right? I mean, he
Yeah.
fit really well. He played great. The thing is that I don't know if the National League gets the DH. A lot of the DHs like that can also play outfield are going to be having National League suitors as well. So like a
Right.
guy like Jorge Soler, I think would be another good fit with the Rays, but he can play some outfield. Another guy, if they traded for, would be Franmil Reyes from the Indians. I think he would be a great fit. I said that at the deadline. I thought they were going to trade for him and
Yeah.
trade it for
We're
the
both high
Yankees,
on him.
but
He's good.
he's a great player. And Cleveland obviously isn't really trying to win right now. So I
Right.
think he may get shipped out this offseason because I think he's a free agent after next year or maybe the year after. But I
Yeah.
think Reyes will definitely go somewhere else. So going to the Red Sox now. Obviously, last year at this time, we wouldn't have said the Red Sox are trying to contend, but I think
Right.
it's safe to say that they are definitely still going to try to contend. And I mean, honestly, dude, I think that their lineup is pretty set. They don't really have many guys leaving, if any. Schwarber's leaving, but they have Dahlbeck at first anyway.
Hmm.
So honestly, I don't really see any holes for them on the field. But I see holes in the rotation and in the bullpen
Yeah.
for the Red Sox. Obviously, they're like rotation wasn't great in the playoffs. Sale was still coming off the injury. He'll be better though. But they are losing Martin Perez, the guy I just said would fit great with the Rays. He was on the Red Sox this year.
Mm.
Erod is potentially a free agent. So I mean, I think Erod is the perfect fit to come back, like I said before. But if they want to go out and get another one, Anthony DeSclafani is such a Red Sox guy to go get. Like he's coming off a great year, but I don't think he's going to make a lot of money. So that could
Yeah.
be a guy that could fit well with like he reminds me of like a guy like Eovaldi, who like had good years and then he went to Boston and was just like unbelievable. Like
Yeah.
DeSclafani is kind of like that for me. Um, I also think Marcus Stroman could fit well with the Red Sox. He obviously knows them. He was on the Blue Jays for a while. I think he's obviously knows the AL East too. So I think he could fit pretty well there. For him though, it all depends on where he wants to go because I could easily see Stroman going back to the Mets too. I think he is from New York, so he would like to stay in New York probably. But
I feel like there'd be a lot of suitors for him, especially because he's not going to be like too expensive. So,
right.
yeah.
I think he's not like the top, but like he should get paid pretty decent, man. He's a good
Oh,
base
yeah.
hitter.
No, absolutely. I just know me.
Finds a
He's not
way.
going to break like
Yeah,
200 probably.
no, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
So we'll see about that. And relievers, Mark Melanson would fit great in Boston. I think he did not pick up his player option with the Padres, so he's a free agent. Raisel Iglesias too, depending on the qualifying offer. The Angels did offer him a qualifying offer, but he's a great closer too. And Emmanuel Clase broke out last year with the Indians. I think they could potentially trade him. I know they still have control over him for a while, but again, they're
Poor
Cleveland Indians
Indians,
again.
man. They have all these
Yeah.
good guys. It's always like, oh, when are we just going to trade them?
Hey
Damn.
man, you think Jose Ramirez gets traded this year? By the way, speaking of that,
I hope not. Not for just for their sake. But no, it would not surprise me. No.
no. But yeah, I mean, I think Clase throws heat, dude. He throws like
Yeah.
103-mile-an-hour cutters. Good luck. So imagine in the same division having Chapman and Clase like throwing heat
That'd
like
be
that. That
sick.
would be
Yeah.
nuts. So, but yeah, I mean, Boston, like I said, their lineup is set. So JD decided to keep the player option, so he is staying now for the
Okay.
next year or two, I think. So moving on to the Yankees. The Yankees got a lot of stuff to change. I think they're
It's you have a
they're
lot.
contending. They just like I think they kind of like stumbled into the playoffs last year. They had a strange season, like we talked about. They were hot, then they weren't hot.
Yeah. It was
Um,
messy.
so I mean, I think it's obvious that they need a shortstop, obviously, because there's no one at short right now. We could put Urshela at short, but that's not going to happen. So we have already been in talks with Seager's agent and Correa's agent. I think that Seager is a better fit because he's left-handed. I think we talked about this a little bit last week. Then he can move
Mhm.
over to third eventually when the two prospects move up. Um, man, as much as like a lot of people are talking Correa to the Yankees, I don't see it. Like not because like I think that like the players that were a part of the team that when the Astros beat us in 17, like
Yeah.
Judge, like Gary, Gardner if he comes back, like they're not just gonna be able to give him a high five and like be like, hey, let's go win. Like there's a lot of emotions there. I really just don't see a world where Aaron Judge and Carlos Correa are on the same team. Because
I don't either. I was talking to my friend about this the other day. Like, where is the line between like your morals and you want to win? Because like, at one point is like, let's say his price lowers. Like, does Cashman eventually start being like, oh, maybe he's a good fit? Like, I agree. I don't see it. I just like, I think it's interesting.
so the thing with me is that like I think that if they're very close to signing Correa, if you're Cashman, you have to ask Judge and you have to ask Gary and you have to ask the guys that were on the team when it happened because
Yeah.
like if you just do this without mentioning it to your team, that could fucking ruin the entire clubhouse.
Mm.
So I think that's interesting. Also, kind of off the free agent thing, our top priority this offseason is signing Aaron Judge. There's no question about that. He's a free agent after the season. Like
Okay.
he has to be locked up. I hope that
Yeah.
Cashman is thinking the same thing because if not, you might as well trade him and get a shit ton of prospects right now. Because if you're not going to sign Aaron Judge, what are you going to do? Give him the qualifying offer? He's not going to take a qualifying offer. Like you have to sign him now. You don't want the Freddie Freeman situation. You know what I mean? Like you don't
Yeah.
want that. And if I'm them, man, I would even go out there and sign Judge before the CBA stuff even happens. That way, you don't have to think about it, and you have him. And while you're at it, name him the new captain because he should be the new captain. He's the closest we've had to it since Jeter. So
Yeah, I don't know if they're thinking about it as far as the re-signing. I have not really heard much. But
I
maybe
haven't
that's
either.
something they keep on the down low. So I don't know.
Yeah. But moving back over to short though, honestly, man, like I like Seager. I think the best fit though is Trevor Story. And there's a few reasons for this. Obviously, we talked about it last week. He's has speed, and that is a thing that the Yankees don't have any of. So
Yeah.
that would be helpful. Plus, Story is probably the best defender out of all of them. Maybe Correa has a better arm, but I think Story has the most range.
Hmm.
Um, and like again, if his offensive numbers like aren't the same like power wise out of Colorado, like we don't really need another big power hitter anyway. We
No,
have
there's
all
plenty
the
of
other
those
guys.
guys.
Like if he could be more like DJ LeMahieu and we can have Story and LeMahieu more like base hit guys going to the porch out there, like I think that would be great. Because it came out too that LeMahieu was battling an oblique injury or a core injury like the entire season, which
Huh.
explains why he didn't play good. I think
Yeah.
he did have surgery about a couple weeks ago. I think he's going to be back this year. But like I think having LeMahieu and then Story at the top of the lineup would be great because of the speed combo. Or Marcus Simeon could be another option for us, but he is older, and I don't think the Yankees want to be strapped with another contract with a guy who's a little bit older. But I think Simeon would fit good. I also think we need a left-handed first baseman because why would you go out and get a right-handed first baseman if you have Luke Voigt, who's probably going to have a great season? So only if he's
Yeah.
left-handed, I would go out and get somebody. Matt Olson is a name that has been thrown out there. Obviously, it looks like the A's are going to be selling everybody off. So I think Olson would be a great fit. Can you imagine, dude? He hits like 40 homers a year in Oakland. If he's at Yankee Stadium, this dude would be
Oh
hitting
yeah.
like 60 homers.
I can
So
picture them getting him for a little bit cheaper
he
deal.
looks like a
Yeah.
Yankee. You know what I mean? Like no facial hair usually. Like
True.
he just
Yeah.
looks like a Yankee. But you know who else, man? I think he's going back to the Braves, but Freddie Freeman would fit
Oh
great
my
with the
God. They're not getting Freddie.
Braves. Dude, I mean, he would fit so well in our lineup, though.
Oh, he
I would
absolutely
say
would.
he would fit so well in everybody's lineup, though, and I don't think he's
Right.
going
Right.
anywhere. So I don't think he's going anywhere. But Anthony Rizzo too, obviously. He was a great fit when he was with us for like those 2 months, 3 months, whatever it was. Um, I would rather have Olson, I think, just because he's younger and he probably has more pop at this point in his career. But if Olson gets traded somewhere else, I would go right to Rizzo, man. He fit great.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would necessarily mean trading Voigt. I'm not sure what would happen there. Obviously, you have LeMahieu too. You would kind of have to move the infield around a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think if you have the opportunity to get Matt Olson, you have to get Matt Olson.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me because the A's were so close this year. Like they bought at the deadline and then they just kind of fell apart. So they're going to be a totally different team next year.
Yeah. No idea what to expect.
So moving on to the Blue Jays. This is going to be the fourth team in the American League East that I say is contending right now. So,
Yeah, man.
and I
Freaking
think that
stacked.
that's completely accurate, right? Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
think all four teams are competing. So the Blue Jays again, if they lose Robbie Ray, they need some starting pitching. They have Ryu, they have Barrios for this whole year too. After that trade last year, which was a great
Right.
deal. They need relief pitching too. Their bullpen was an issue the entire season. They traded for Brad Hand. He ended up with you guys, I think, at the end of the year.
Oh yeah.
So that trade didn't work out, and they need infield if Marcus Simeon doesn't come back. So I think at starting pitching, you first obviously would love to get Robbie Ray back. I think that's their priority, but he might get a lot more money than they think. So I don't know about that. Another fit there is Marcus Stroman, former Blue Jay. Like I said, he played there for a while. He knows the division, so I think that would be a great fit for
It'd be
them.
a cool return. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be great. I mean, I think Toronto loved him too, man. When they were in the playoffs those years, Stroman was awesome.
Yeah.
So that would be a good move, I think. Also, Kevin Gausman, I think, would fit great with Toronto.
Mm.
He's a guy who kind of broke out. He like did a little bad down the stretch, but he did good in the playoffs. Did decent. So I think he might be a guy that like teams don't want to bet everything on too. Like they might give him like a 100 million, maybe 120 million for like 5 years, but I don't see him getting like 200 million. Honestly, I really
Yeah,
don't.
no, maybe in the beginning of the
Um,
season you would think that, but not, yeah, not at this point. Yeah.
yeah. Relief pitching wise, I think Mark Melanson would also be a great fit with Toronto. He has all the experience. He's been in the playoffs a ton with a bunch of different teams. Also, if we're talking about Toronto, man, they have a lot of like personality on that team right now. They had a lot of like positive vibes and stuff, like Vladdy, Bichette, all these
Yeah, no,
guys.
they're a fun team.
So reliever wise, I mean Joe Kelly would be a
Joe
great fit.
Kelly.
Um, I mean, that dude has more personality than
He's a
anybody, so that would
king.
be great. Also, man, Archie Bradley had a pretty decent year with the Phillies. He was hurt for a little while, but he has big personality too. Remember that wild card game in 2017
Oh
when he
yeah,
hit that triple? Like, he's a good
was
guy to
epic.
have in the clubhouse too. So I think that honestly, dude, I think the Blue Jays could potentially sign all three of the guys I just said because I don't think they're going to be getting like insane money. Melanson's kind of older. Kelly and
Right.
Bradley will probably get 1 or 2 year deals, maybe a 3 year deal for like I don't know, 27 million or something for like 9 million a year, something like that. So I think that they could potentially do that. If they really want to go for it, man, they've got to get relievers though, because their bullpen is kind of shaky right now.
Yeah,
Um,
agreed.
and if we're talking about infield, obviously Marcus Simeon, they want to get him back to play second base every day.
Mhm.
But who knows? He might want to play shortstop now that he established his market. Um, we're going to talk about it, I think, a little bit next week. But some corner infielders that I think would fit on different teams. We're going to talk about that next week. But
Yeah.
Chris Bryant, I think, would fit great with Toronto. I think that's kind of like an underdog type of team to sign him.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know how much money he's going to get. That's the thing. You know, I don't know. Is he like a 300 million? Is he like 200?
Yeah, like I would find it odd if they swapped out Semyon for Bryant, but
Right.
I mean, crazier things have happened.
I mean, can you imagine an infield though with Vlad, Biggio at second, Bichette at short, and Brian at third?
That'd
Like
be
that would be sick.
stupid. That'd be
Their
stupid.
offense would be absolutely unbelievable. But if you're talking about that too, like Biggio can play third, so I think Javier Baez would also be a great fit for
Mm,
Toronto. I think he's going to go back to the Mets, but um, like we talked about too, Bichette is not great defensively. He may get better, but if you get Baez, you could easily put Bichette at second or put him at third, put Biggio at second, Baez at short.
yeah, they have
They
some
could have a lot of moving
flexibility.
parts. So, yeah, I think two former Cubs, man, Bryant and Baez would both fit great with Toronto if they
True.
land Simeon.
Yeah.
But again, who knows how much money they're all going to want? Baez is probably going to get paid a lot too. So,
Yeah.
I don't know what really is going to happen there, but we're going to move on to the last team, the lowly Baltimore Orioles, who are obviously rebuilding. They, they were pretty bad, but they still got some guys to root for. Like
They got some
everybody loves,
pieces.
everybody loves Trey Mancini.
Oh
Cesar
yeah.
Mullins just had the breakout year, so
Yeah.
Baltimore fans, there's some good things to look at. Although I could easily see Mancini getting traded this year because he's a free agent after this year. But we'll see. They may lock him up though for like the next wave of Baltimore good teams. I think that would be a
Good.
great
Yeah.
idea because he's also been through the cancer battle with the Orioles. They were there for him. I think he would probably prefer to stay in Baltimore, but we'll see what happens there.
Right.
But they got a lot of young guys that they're going to let play, like Mountcastle, Mancini, Mullins. Austin Hayes is going to play in left field pretty much every day, I believe. So they got
Right.
some pieces there. I think they need some starting pitching, relief pitching, maybe second base and third base. And I think they're going to look at guys who are kind of coming off of all of bad, like worse seasons than they're used to, maybe, and that way they can trade them at some point. Because they're not looking to have guys there long term. They're looking to sign guys and then trade them. So,
Yeah.
starting pitching wise, I look at Zach Greinke. He didn't have a great year. He's 38 years old. If he suddenly has a great first half with the Orioles, he could easily get traded. Drew Smiley, the same way with the Braves, just won a championship too, so it would be a good veteran presence to have in the clubhouse over there. And Michael Waka could move from the Rays to the Orioles and then get traded too. I think all three of those guys kind of have to reestablish themselves, and doing it with Baltimore might not be the great idea for a starting pitcher, but still,
Yeah.
Baltimore might try to do it. Relief pitching, Trevor Rosenthal, I think would be a great fit. Obviously, he signed with Oakland and never even threw a pitch because he got hurt early on in the season. So
Forgot about
I
that.
don't think he pitched at all. Which we all thought was I thought it was a great signing at the time too, because he had a great year last year with San Diego. But
Yeah.
again, he would be a guy they would probably sign and trade him. Dylan Betances the same way. He was pretty much hurt the whole season with you guys. Did he
Yeah.
even pitch at all? I don't think he pitched at all.
No, I don't think so.
Um,
He's been like missing for
yeah.
2 years.
Another guy, Alex Colomé, went to the Twins this year and was awful.
Yeah, he fell
But
off.
he has a track record. He was great with the Rays, the White Sox, the Mariners. So I think he'll probably try to reestablish himself. Looking at second base too. Again, these are like names that we know they're not going to be superstars. Like Joe Panic. He was good at one point. He could have a good first half and get traded. Brock Holt, Josh Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're guys that can move around too. The Orioles may like that. That way they can play everywhere. That'll even increase their trade value more. And at third base, like Matt Carpenter too, is coming off like a couple of bad seasons in St. Louis now. He might try to reestablish himself. A guy like Matt Duffy too. Interesting though. I think that Kyle Seager could potentially actually fit with Baltimore if he takes like a shorter term deal and like maybe a 2 or 3 year deal, and then it's not for like maybe not as many people want him as we think, and then he gets traded at some point too.
The only case against that I would say is that like he has really never been on a great team. So maybe he wants to go a contender, but again, it depends on the demand.
It depends on the market exactly. So I think that I think he'll probably will go to a contender if they want him. But let's say they're signing everybody else because Seager's a little bit older.
Right.
Because he is 34 too. So like he's a lot older. We talked about like guys being older, like Semion's a little bit older, so he probably won't be getting as much money as like Correa or Story. Plus, man, Seager could put up great numbers in Baltimore and really increase his trade value. I mean, he hit 30 homers a year pretty much in Seattle. Imagine playing in Baltimore. That dude would hit a ton more. So
Yeah. No, it might be a good fit,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah. But yeah, so that's my outlook for the AL East this offseason. I think there's going to be a lot of moving parts for sure. It's going to look a lot different for every team, honestly.
Yeah. So I'll dive into the NL East a little bit. Starting with the Braves. We talked about a lot. I mean, Freeman's obviously the first priority. I think that one gets done. Like, I don't think that's much of a conversation, honestly. Even in the parade, who was it that was like, he was doing his speech and he was really like re-signed Freddie. What was one of I think it was Riley, one of them.
I think it might have been Riley. Yeah.
Yeah. But that one, I think it's done. I think it's more the guys we were talking about last week: Rosario, Peterson, Soler. I don't think they keep all of them, but I think that you definitely want at least like one of them. So, and I mean, yeah, you bring back Acuna, you bring back Soroka. So I think there's not going to be a ton of movement on that team. The Phillies, I think, is where it gets more interesting. You have McCutchen, who's a free agent. So I'm curious to see what they do with that. He's definitely not the player he used to be, but they need pitching though. I think so. Like we talked about Stroman, Gossman. I can definitely see them signing guys like that. Mets. I mean, yeah, Stroman, like we mentioned, but Javi Baez, number one priority.
Carlos Correa.
Carlos. See, I'm okay with him, honestly, because he didn't really affect my team on the Astros, but like,
I know
that would,
man,
yeah.
we talked about it. Correa at third, Baez at second, Lindor at short. I mean,
Dude, I'm worried about Baez right now. I know I shot on him early in the season. It's all forgiven, Javi. But yeah, it'd be huge to bring him back. Stroman, obviously. Conforto's like the wild card for me. I don't think he comes back at this point. I find it hard to picture.
Who do you think would be like a good fit to replace him in right field if he doesn't come back? Like, do you think you guys go after like another left-handed outfielder, whether it's a trade or a free agent wise? Like, there's not a ton of left-handed outfielders. That's the thing. So that's also why I think he might be on the market, thinking that he's going to get a lot because there's not.
That's true.
Out there.
We don't have a lot of outfield depth. That's a good point. Other than like a Nimmo. I really don't want to give Dom Smith too many at bats. I'm kind of done with Dom Smith.
I mean, I think honestly, Starling Marte, I think would fit great with the Mets.
That's a thought. Yeah,
And
I
maybe
could see it.
Move Nimmo to right or something. Because that would be a great leadoff hitter for you guys, and then have Nimmo second or like the other way around. I mean, I think that would be great. Um, I
Yeah,
don't know though. If Conforto leaves, you guys definitely need to get an outfielder, whether it's a trade or a free agent wise, because
yeah.
I don't think you guys have much depth in the minors for outfielders either. Do you? Right now,
Not
I don't think so.
not that I'm aware of. No.
Yeah. So
So
yeah.
yeah, they got their work. They got their work cut out for them. I think relievers like we talked about Melanson, Iglesias could help. Um, I mean, yeah, Diaz obviously is hit or miss. I would say Aaron Loop too. To again re-sign him, he had a
Yeah. He
fantastic
had a
year.
solid season. Yeah,
Was
definitely.
somehow left off of like the whatever the relievers awards were. Somehow was
Yeah.
not included on that. Unbelievable. But
Yeah, man.
neither here nor there.
Yeah.
And then yeah, like I'm kind of grouping the Nationals and Marlins together. They're both rebuilding teams. Obviously,
Yeah.
they also don't have a lot of free agents coming out either that they have to resign. So yeah, I think you look at kind of like the Orioles. You look at guys like a Joe Panic, a Brock Holt,
Right.
um, maybe like a Matt Carpenter trying to reestablish themselves. Um, and then on the same note, yeah, like relievers, like a Joe Kelly, Archie Bradley. I can definitely see on either of those
So
teams.
I think that the Nationals are kind of going to be in fifth place. I think at the end of the year, I think the Marlins are kind
Okay.
of going to try to get some traction on the rebuild now. Like they're going to have a sick rotation, because Sixto Sanchez is going to be back. They have
Yeah.
Pablo Lopez, Alcantara, and Rogers. So like they're going to have a
Right.
pretty good rotation. They just re-signed Miguel Rojas, or like they gave him an extension or whatever. So their infield is honestly pretty solid too. They have Aguilar at first, Chisholm at second, Rojas at short, and then Brian Anderson is going to be at third, who was pretty much hurt the whole year last year, but he's a great
Mm.
player. Maybe they go after like a big outfielder. I think like Starling Marte played there for half a season already in 2020, so I think he would be a great fit there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Marlins are going to try to do some things. The
I'm not
Nationals,
looking
they're going to
forward to
have
playing them. I agree. I think
no.
they're probably better than they've come off to be. So
Right. Because again, like they had a good shortened season, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, it was the short year, and then they were bad last year." But like that last year, I don't look at because Sixto Sanchez wasn't even a pitching, so that was like he was probably their best starter in the playoffs in 2020. Um,
yeah,
and I mean the Nationals, man, for me, it's just like lock up Soto. That's your main priority here. Get him there like a Tatis contract for the rest of his career. I think that's it.
yeah,
Just you got to do that. Like Acuna's with Atlanta for a while. Soto has to be a national. If you don't do that, I don't know how much. I think Boris is his agent, but still, I think you
yeah.
got to
He
sign
could be
him.
my break records with that contract, but regardless.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So stat of the week closing out. The St. Louis Cardinals just became the first team in MLB history to have 5 Gold Glove winners in a season. So it was Goldschmidt, Tommy Edman, Nolan Arenado, Tyler O'Neill, and Harrison Bader.
Man,
Pretty sick.
what a fucking team, dude! Like they were probably the best defensive team last year. I think Arenado was still insane. Goldie, I think he has a couple Gold Gloves, right, from
I
Arizona.
think
I think
so.
he's got a few.
Yeah.
Um, Edmund is great at second. He was kind of a guy who moved around a lot before Arenado was there, so I think he's kind of established himself as like the everyday second baseman.
Yeah.
Bader is a beast, dude. That dude is probably defensively. I might be able to say he's the best defensive center fielder in the league right now. I think
Hmm.
last year, man, some of the catches he was making were nuts. Plus, his arm is great. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. And then another thing I just read as we're saying this, they also have 95 Gold Gloves all time, like the Cardinals. That's 24 more than any other team.
Really, wow.
So this is like a tradition at this point.
The Cardinal
So
way. We always hear the Cardinal way. That's definitely what's going on right now.
yeah, I mean they're running back that whole team basically next year. So and just to see where they
Except
go.
they don't have Mike Schilt as their manager anymore.
Oh right. No, he's
A little
philosophical
weird.
differences. Where was the difference there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up for us. We'll be back next week to talk more offseason stuff. Yeah, take care.
All right. See you guys next week.